Hello and welcome. So I decided to do something a little different today. It's not really a book review. It's not really a biography. But I want to make a few comments. Now this book here is the first of a long series of books that were published by Mike Caveney. It started out as magical publications. It started out as magical publications and it evolved into magic words. I have always felt, I remember when I started to collect these, and this one was published in 1986. It's the first in the long series. When I started to collect these, it was by Denny Haney's recommendation. Now, Denny Haney knew that I loved magic history. I have a passion for magic history. When Mike Caveney began to produce these, Denny said to me, "David, you need to get every one that he produces." And so I started to do that. I started to purchase these things. This, by the way, is called Walter Gene's Illusioneer, and it is written by Peter Warlock, published by Mike Caveney's publishing company, Magical Publications, which later became Magic Word. This is Carter the Great. This is the way these books evolved. This book started out here, and it ended up here. This is the kind of work that Mike Caveney does. Now, I'm trying to make a point here. When I purchased this book, I didn't know who Walter Genes was. I didn't know what his contributions to magic were. When I read the book, I was astounded at what is called the silver or inexhaustible hat illusion. The principle that undergirds that illusion is one of the great principles in stage magic. And so I was totally blown away when I learned the principle, when I read about Walter Genes, when I read about the earlier incarnations of this effect, which later evolved into such things as Things That Go Bump in the Night by Doug Henning. I mean, the principle that Walter Genes invented has produced some of the most astounding illusions, in my opinion, in the history of stage magic. And so it is not to be taken lightly. Now here's where something that I'd like to share with you on a personal level. If you look at this, I don't know if you can see it. I'm just going to hold it up. I mean, I could photograph it closer, but I just want you to see it. It says here, this is number 101 of a limited edition of 500 copies. Copy 101 of a limited edition of 500 copies. Now, I've always questioned the value of limiting editions. You know, as a writer, and I am a writer, as a publisher, and I'm also a publisher, I don't want to limit edition. If I could sell 2 million books, I would do that. But there is a sort of an unspoken, I think, understanding when you limit an edition to a magic book that contains carefully guarded secrets. And that is that you want to limit the number of people that are exposed to the secret so that you're protecting the secret. Robert Harbin did this when he produced his magnificent book that disclosed the secret of the zigzag and some other illusions. He limited the number of copies that were available so that he limited the exposure of these effects. The Carter book, this is number 352 of 1,000. So it's the same idea. So as a magician, you're paying a little bit more to get something that you think has limited exposure, that limited people are going to have exposure to. Now, I will tell you that over the years, this was the first that was produced. Denny Haney knew who Mike Caveney was. He knew how valuable these were going to be, and that's why Denny told me I needed to buy it. And as you can see, I bought a very early copy. This, once again, this is 101 of 500. So, I mean, I did that. And my library is not for sale, by the way, because I'm still active. I'm still performing. I'm still reading. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. This is my library. I use it. I refer to it. When I did the color changing knife routine for this vlog, I referred to this book because in this book it is alleged that Walter Jeans developed the routine for the color changing knives. Perhaps he invented the color changing knives. So I thought it was an important reference for that. Here's where I'm going. If you go to Mike Caveney's website today, Magic Words, and you look up this book, it's for sale. Not in this form. What he has done is he said, and he makes a comment. He writes, I actually have the language right here. Let me share this with you. This is, by the way, this is from the Magic Words website. Walter Jeans Illusioneer by Peter Warlock, 161 pages, lavishly illustrated. Let me just see something. Okay, so this, if you include the information in the back, 88 pages. 88 pages. So 161 pages, lavishly illustrated with photos, advertisements, and diagrams, which this, by the way, is not lavishly illustrated. This is lavishly illustrated. So like anybody else, I think Mike Caveney grew as a writer, as a historian, as a performer, and as a publisher, and this became this, right? So he grew, he understood how to bring more to the table. And I think that's what he's doing here. Plus the $1 Million Mystery. The $1 Million Mystery is what we're referring to here. As really the reason, I think it's one of the primary reasons why you pick the book up. Because you want to study the lineage of the $1 Million Mystery. Remaining copies are presentation copies. Expanded edition of #1 in our series of magical profiles, published in 2006. In 1986, Mike Caveney's Magic Words, then Magical Publications, produced a modest book about a relatively unknown illusion inventor named Walter Jeans, written by a well-known magic scholar named Peter Warlock. The title page included this line, the first in a series of magical profiles. Though it took years to sell these books, the series grew to include more than a dozen titles. 1,000 copies of each book were produced, with the exception of this one. This is the only one that was produced in a limited run of 500. We are pleased to announce this new edition of Walter Jeans Illusioneer. This is not a reprint of the first edition, but rather a book nearly twice the size of the original. It features an abundance of new material, a transcript of Walter Jeans' original autobiography. Discover the true story behind Jeans' greatest creation, the $1 Million Mystery, and study both the British and American patent papers of this groundbreaking principle. Follow Jeans as he interacts with Chung-Ling Soo, Carter the Great, P.T. Selbit, Will Goldstein, Survey Leroy, and the Maskelyne family, and Harry Houdini, who after seeing Jeans manipulate coins, remarked, "You are the greatest unknown man I have ever met." Sounds like a typical Houdini comment. Now here's the thing. If I were publishing books myself, I don't think I would restrict the run. But when you do restrict a run, when you make the comment that there's only so many produced, to go back and then re-release it, you know, I was I continue to be, in the summer of 2020, after I left my job at Richcroft after 26 years, and that's a long story. I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. What happened there was we got new management, and I wasn't on the same page with the vision of the new management, so I opted to resign. Plus, I wanted to pursue some things on my own. I wanted to see if I could make a living as an entrepreneur, because my belief is that entrepreneurs drive this country forward. Entrepreneurship is what this country was built upon, and I really want to take my place as an entrepreneur. I want to produce something in my society that has value, and that's my goal. Now, I since opted to go back to another company. I've been working for that other company since December of 2020. But I'm looking forward to the opportunity to get back and get back to my roots and do it again. But part of the work that I was doing, I was buying and selling. And I particularly enjoy dealing in vintage and antique goods. And occasionally what will happen is something is popular. Something, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but well, let's take Ouija boards, for example. I happen to be an expert in the area of Ouija. And so I have one, at one point I had one of the most extensive collections well, at least in the tri-state area. Now, if you go up into Boston, of course, you're getting into Robert Murch territory, and he is the premier expert in the world on Ouija, and he has the most extensive collection in the world. So I wouldn't compare mine to his, but he and I are friends, and I acknowledge that he is the foremost leading expert, but I have a pretty decent collection myself, and I understand a lot about the board and where it came from and so on. Well, popularity in collecting has increased. When Robert and I started, you could find really good vintage and antique boards in antique shops and malls and the places where used things are sold. You could find them in estate sales. Now there are so many collectors and the demand is so great. And here's what has happened. People have started to reproduce some of the vintage boards. And what that tends to do in the marketplace is it tends to drive down the value of the original. Now, there's certainly nothing wrong with reissuing an edition with more information and more material. But I guess where I'm going is that it just struck me as a little bit a shame that it's being re-released that way. It benefits the magic community. It benefits history. It benefits those who were not able to pick this book up. But I will tell you that this book, if you were fortunate enough to find it for sale, it was going for $300, $400, $500 easily. Again, I'm not interested in selling. I've had people offer to buy this book from me because they wanted their collection to be complete, and I didn't sell it because I want my collection to be complete. So I don't fault Mike Caveney for doing that, but again, if you're going to spend extra to get a limited edition book, you're expecting that it is in fact limited edition. Anyhow, Walter Jeans, born in 1877, passed away 1942 in Birmingham, England. Achieved success as a magic inventor in silver or inexhaustible hat illusion, presented by P.T. Selbit as the $1 Million Mystery, sold to the Maskelynes, and in 1928, Howard Thurston purchased the American rights. And from there, that principle evolved and continued to evolve into what it has become today, which is one of the most amazing principles in stage magic. And if you want to read about its origin, pick this book up. It's still available through Mike Caveney's Magic Words. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly enjoyed presenting it to you. Please comment down below. Please subscribe if you have not done so already. I will see you next time. Thank you so much.